Hi, this is Reinhard from EverydaySystems.com. Last week, I was a little overambitious. I basically tried to cram two systems into one podcast, Chain of Self-Command and Personal Punch Cards. Today, I'm going to try to clear up some ambiguities about both systems that I wasn't able to resolve last week, despite my rush to cram everything in. But mostly, I'm going to focus on the details of how I do the personal punch cards. I don't have time to repeat what I said last week, so please go back and listen to that segment if you haven't already, because this isn't going to make any sense otherwise. Okay, first dual system issue. The more anal among you may have been disturbed by the unsatisfying mix of metaphors going on here. We've got a military analogy for the chain of command, and a computer analogy for the punch cards. It doesn't quite fit, but I think I've managed to figure out a way to resolve it. Your chain of command army is an army of robots, of 1960s era robots who take punch cards. They're like the Daleks from Doctor Who. For added motivational benefit, imagine your punch card orders being read in that evil robot Dalek voice. In case you don't remember what this sounds like, I found a somewhat relevant clip on the internet.
You will obey the Daleks. Obey. Punch, or you will be exterminated.
Okay, inspiring. Next dual system issue. I want to give some more clarifications on scope. Last week I said that as long as a rank in the chain of command is in temporal scope, you can assume that role and give new orders. So all of 2007 for your 2007 general, all of January 2007 for your January 2007 officer. It's a wonderful computery concept that I took from my day job as a programmer. But it seems to contradict the major point of the system, which is to separate out these functions so you don't countermand your own orders all the time. When your foot soldier self doesn't like what he's supposed to do, he shouldn't be able to all of a sudden put on general uniform whenever he feels like it. Here's how I resolve this, and this sort of ties in with the implementational details of what the punch cards look like that I'm going to focus on for the rest of this segment. 1. Once you write an order, you can't negate it. You have to do it or acknowledge failure. Or perhaps refine it a little, narrow it down a bit. What you write on one of these cards does not get erased, so you can't simply countermand orders. When the scope of the card closes, say at the end of the day for a foot soldier, you either cross out the order to designate success, or leave it uncrossed out to designate failure. Or you've scribbled some little emendation next to it and then crossed it out. So you can't directly countermand orders. I think there's some historical precedent for this in the Book of Esther, if I remember correctly. King Ahasuerus, the king of Persia and Media, could pretty much give any command he wanted, however nuts, and it became law. But he couldn't undo his own previous commands. This sounds a little inflexible, but it's limited inflexibility. At least what I'm talking about here. I don't know about King Ahasuerus. It has a built-in timeout. It's better than mushiness. A degree of inflexibility is necessary to teach you how to set good goals. There's nothing like following through on something dumb to teach you to be smart next time. And if you followed through even when you were dumb and knew that you were dumb, you can be sure you're going to follow through when you know you're smart. 2. The foot soldier card is the only card that you carry around with you. The officers and generals stay at home. So you can't just run into a phone booth like Superman and come out an officer or a general whenever you feel like it. Only at home in front of your file of index cards. 3. The kinds of commands that you give at these 3 different ranks are really very different from each other. The subject matter, self-improvement, is more or less the same, but the scales at which they operate are so different that it's like quantum physics versus general relativity. So the orders on the general card can't really contradict the orders on an officer card or a foot soldier card because they're functionally about different things. I'll give some examples in a bit. 4. If you want to get technical, the orders that you write on each rank of card are orders for that role, not from that role. What you write on one card isn't directly to the other card. right? The general isn't telling the foot soldier what to do. It can't directly countermand the other card's orders. The only way you can countermand the orders on a given card is to erase those orders or rip up the card, which you're not allowed to do. Alright. What do these cards look like? I was going to make this the crux of this segment, and now I'm almost out of time again. I'm going to scan and post images of some of my cards on the everydaysystems.com website because I think that will be more helpful than anything I could say here. But I'll quickly talk through some of the salient features. I use lined index cards. Yellow for foot soldiers, red for monthly officers, purple for yearly generals. The orders go on the line side, one per line, more or less. The front of the card, the line side, is binding. You have to do this stuff. You can't erase it. On the unlined back of the card, I can write free-form stuff, notes, which I don't have to obey but don't want to forget. Following the punch card analogy, it's like a computer code comment. On daily cards, on the back side, I'll write phone numbers or ideas for my next podcast or stuff to remember to add to the next day's orders or stuff that I think should become in order maybe even today, but I'm not clear enough yet how to express it. I just don't want to forget it. At the top of the card goes the date to the appropriate level of granularity. Year for the generals, year and month for the officers, year, month, day for the foot soldiers. On weekdays, for foot soldiers, I divide each card into 3 columns: work, routine, and errands. Work is pretty self-explanatory. Routine is stuff that I expect to do every day, like shovel glove. I'm big on routine, so this column is always full for me. Errand is one-off stuff like shopping or calling a friend or paying a bill. I've done this now with the 3 columns for about 6 months, and I find it an enormously helpful division. Almost every task I can think of obviously falls into one of these categories, and it's a good way to balance, at a glance, 3 fundamental priorities that most of us have. You can also think of the columns as roughly corresponding to people. Work is your boss and your coworkers, routine is yourself, errand is your family and friends, more or less. If, on average, the columns have roughly the same number of rows, you're probably achieving a good balance. If not, you may want to take steps to see that you do. The fact that lined index cards have 10 rows is helpful. It's a built-in sanity check on your ambition. Much as you may want to do more than 10 things in each column, it's probably not very realistic. That limited space forces you to be realistic and make considered, deliberate trade-offs that you choose, rather than just waking up to the fact that life imposed certain trade-offs on you after a while. On weekends, and for the monthly and yearly cards, I don't bother breaking it up into columns. I just do a single column list. I carry each daily card around with me in my wallet. The rest I keep in an index card filing box at home in chronological order. I use golf pencils, those little stubby pencils, to write on my cards. Golf pencils are fantastic. They're small enough to fit in your wallet, and they're cheap. You can buy a whole box of a few hundred for a few bucks. I'm always losing pens and pencils, but golf pencils are so cheap and plentiful that who cares? And unlike pens, you can always see if the darn thing is going to write. I can't stand starting to write with a pen and then it's out of ink. And with pencils, you can write, upside down at weird angles, etc. As I mentioned last time, I've got about half a year of experience doing these daily punch cards, but I've only just started doing the yearly and monthly. I'll just give a quick example of what these bigger scale cards look like and report back in a few months and years when I have better empirical data on them. A monthly card corresponds to a monthly resolution, like I've talked about in previous podcasts. So, for example, try to do the no-S diet every day for a month. You might also want to attach monthly personal Olympics medal goals to this, like no failures is gold, 1 failure at the end of the month is silver, etc. I would stick to just 1 card a month to really focus on it. That still gives you 12 a year. But I'm giving myself several yearly general cards, 1 card per issue. I write the year and then the issue, like 2007 exercise or 2007 driving. Each of those gets a separate card. I grew up in Manhattan, so I'm a terrible driver. Identifying these issues is actually the most important step for the yearly cards. Then every month you can look at these and think how to translate it into a concrete resolution. But I don't just identify the issues. I also scribble potential monthly resolutions on the card for future reference so I don't forget. And I even write some concrete goals, some of them framed as personal Olympics goals with the medal points. So for example, under Exercise 2007, I wrote push-ups on one line with medal points at 60, 65, and 70. On my Driving 2007 card, I have a list of destinations I want to drive to as goals. I'll cross each one off as I get there. As with the daily and monthly cards, stuff I write on the lined front of the card is binding. Stuff I write on the back is just comments. You don't have to come up with all your yearly cards on January 1st. You can add them throughout the year. But add carefully, unless you want to stare at a lot of unacted on cards for a whole year. I could go on and on about this, but I'm out of time for today. If you're interested, check out the everydaysystems.com website. I'll be posting scanned images of my cards and updates there. Thanks for listening.